IVM.
Hi, I'm Utsav, a behavior researcher by training and a slow traveler by passion. Postcards from Nowhere is a travel podcast where I condense a decade of travel experiences and explore not just the where, but also the why and how to travel. My stories emerged from slow traveling the less explored parts of the world: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Armenia, Uzbekistan, and even China. At the end of each story, I give practical tips and new ideas about how to travel better. This week, starting a new series, The Great Migration. We delve into the phenomenon of Bhojpuri migration, going into its past and the impact it had on the migrants and their wives, all the while straddling emotions of longing and sexuality. O womania, oho womania. O womania, oho womania. भूलेगा बबुना चल जई हो पटना. पटना बहाने वो चाहेगा सटना. दहियो ना बबुना को टिकट कटनिया. दहियो ना बबुआ को टिकट कटनिया. पटना ना जाना चाहे जाना सिवनिया. This song from the Bollywood film Gangs of Wasseypur captures the interactions between a husband and a wife, with all sorts of sexual innuendos at play, right from a husband asking for love bites to a woman acting coy and denying sexual pleasure to him. The specific lines you just listened to, however, have a reference to Patna, where the older women advise a young one not to get lured by the man's promise of taking her to Patna. While Wasseypur in reality falls in Jharkhand today, the reference to Patna is noteworthy, because Patna was often the town that became the focal point of migration from Bihar. This is the story of a migration we see everywhere today. For no state in India today would be unaware of Bihari, or more accurately, Bhojpuri migrants. But what often gets missed in this broad brush story is how the history of migration from the Bhojpur region contains multitudes and opens up a whole new world of migratory songs, straddling emotions of longing, sexuality, and illicit dalliances. Most of contemporary India's imagination of Bhojpur is a caricature built through lewd Bhojpuri songs. What often remains forgotten is that the region saw the rise and fall of the greatest dynastic civilizations in Indian history. The cities of yore, Patliputra, now Patna, would have drawn numerous migrants across centuries. South of Patna, the famed Buddhist monastery at Nalanda attracted students from as far as China. Over the later centuries, its relative distance from the tumultuous history of Delhi, along with access to the plentiful waters of the Ganga, allowed it to flourish, making it one of the most densely populated regions in the country. One particular district in this region was the Saran district, which in 1901 had a rather unusual claim to fame. In a country known for the insidious practice of prenatal gender screening, its sex ratio was 1,200 females per 1,000 males. No, the Saran district did not suddenly have an awakening and started caring for the girl child. What really happened is best explained in the following song.
रिलिया हो गईले सावतिया हो पिया के ले गईले ना रिलिया हो गईले सावतिया हो पिया के ले गईले ना उही दसुवा रंगुनुआ पिया के ले गईले ना उही दसुवा बंगलवा पिया के ले गईले ना Reliana berry jahajiana berry Reliana berry jahajiana berry Peswa berry na Piya ke le gaile na Deswa bharmave Uhe peswa berry na Piya ke le gaile na.
A rough translation of this would be: the railway has become a co-wife. It has taken away my beloved. It has taken away my beloved to Rangoon. It has taken away my beloved to Bengal. Neither the railways nor the steamships. The real enemy is money. It forces one to wander from one to another country. The real enemy is money. The advent of the railway sped up migration in the Bhojpur region, and the song is a lament by the woman who was left behind. The first wave of migration started east, towards Purab, which gave rise to a whole new genre of songs that came to be known as the Purabiyas. These songs had the circulatory nature of migration at their core. As you would see in the song sung by Avishesh, these were often characterized by male migration to places such as Bengal and Rangoon, but with the possibility of returning to home seasonally or permanently. In many of the folk songs, the husband returns after 12 years. This is borrowed from the epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata. In the Ramayana, Sita accompanied Ram in exile for 12 years. But unlike Sita, the Bhojpuri women did not accompany their men. The men migrated to the city, but it was their wives who ironically experienced exile in the villages. This gave rise to a host of challenges. Long periods of separation meant insecurity and sexual frustration. The wives became anxious about the Bangalinia Sunari, or beautiful Bengali women, who would seduce their husbands. The woman's lament weaved its way into various folk song genres, the kind women sang when they were doing manual labor. Some of the most popular genres include Ropani, Suhani, and Jatsari. But what became really interesting is how in these very songs, women have been shown as accepting or rejecting these proposals depending upon the context and the genre. For example, in Jatsari, women are shown rejecting the proposals of their brother-in-laws or strangers. While in Ropani songs, the woman protagonist is shown having sexual affairs with other men in her husband's absence, which leads to illegitimate pregnancies. Here is one Jatsari, for example.
मोरा पिछुअरवा ए ननदी चंपुआ के फुलवा नूरे जी चंपुआ के फुलवा ए ननदी रहेला गरबुआ नूरे जी ए गरबुआ ए ननदी केकरा सिर धारा भी नूरे जी अरे साम मोरे गईलिए ननदी रजुवान करिया नूर जी देवर मोरे हवे ए ननदी लरिका गादलवा नूर जी ए गरबुआ ए ननदी केकरा सिर धारा भी नूर जी नितुविन भेसुवे ए भौजी भैया आगे पहुँचाउन नूर जी काहे तू लेबू ए नितुविन दर्द के मुलवा नूर जी काहे तू लेबू ए नितुविन सूरती के मुलवा नूर जी हम तले भी एक रजवा हथवा के मुंडरिया नूर जी मुंडरी जबली हाली एन तुविन घरवा लौटाली नूर जी घरी राती गईली ए ननदी पिछली पहरिया नूर जी होट भिनु सरवा ए ननदी रोएला घरिलवा नूर जी बारहो बरसी पर ए ननदी लौटेला बंजिरवा नूर जी केकर जनमल ए भैली रोएलवा होरिलवा नूर जी जिनकर होइन ए ननदी हाथ के मुंडरिया नूर जी उनकर जनमल ए ननदी रोएला होरिलवा नूर जी.
In this song, the protagonist, whose husband has been away for a long time, is pregnant. She confides this problem with her sister-in-law. Brother-in-law is a young child and hence cannot be blamed for her pregnancy. The sister-in-law suggests she go and have sex with her own husband in disguise as a sex worker, and as payment, take something which belongs to him as evidence. In the narrative, the protagonist is shown acting on a sister-in-law's suggestion. Finally, when the husband comes back and asks about the child, the wife shows him his ring, which she had taken in exchange for the sexual service she provided him in the disguise of a sex worker. The ring was used as proof that the husband is the father of the child. Though the solution in the narrative is fictional and elusive, it is worth observing that the two women are collaborating to solve the issue. The sister-in-law should have ideally taken his side and exposed his wife for cheating him, but she does the exact opposite. We can read this as an act of sisterhood against the patriarchal surveillance over women's sexuality. It also indicates that women of the same age group are prone to similar circumstances and hence become collaborators. But not all songs are about fictional and elusive solutions. Some are rather direct.
हमरो छैलबा बिदसबा हो पनिया कैसे भरबू हमरो छैलबा बिदसबा हो पनिया कैसे भरबू हमरो छैलवा के कम कर यार हो पनिया भरी देला हमरो छैलवा के सोनर यार हो झुलनी गही देला हमरो छैलवा के रन रजवा यार हो चुनरी रंगी देला हमरो छैलवा के केवट यार हो मछरी मछरी मारी देला मछरी खात ना नदी राही गेली पेट हो केकरा सर ढारू हमरो छैलबा विदेश हो केकरा सर ढारू ससुर मोर बुढ़बा देवर नादान हो 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 भसुरा सर ढारू हमरो छैलवा विदेश हो भसुरा सर ढारू.
In this song, sung mostly by lower caste women, the protagonist is talking about how she had fun with her husband's friends and got pregnant. She is narrating that her husband is away and hence his friends provide her all the pleasures and fulfill her requirements. For example, the kahar, the palanquin bearer, who traditionally serves upper caste households by carrying water, goes out of his way to fetch her water. The sonar, the goldsmith adorns her with nose-pin. Rangresh, the dyer, colors her chunari, and Kevta, the fisherman, provides her with fish. The nose-pin and chunari are symbols with strong sexual connotations. Removing one's nose-pin is suggestive of consummation, while chunari, the piece of cloth used to cover a woman's bosom, is a symbol of her modesty as well as sexuality. The act of coloring the chunari, as narrated in the song, has strong sexual connotations. Even as we travel within India, one of the most significant aspects has been how little we understand the lives of people who are unlike us. I'm a migrant myself, but my privilege and my biases allow me to distance myself from the masses. We often see them as people with singular identities and not as complex human beings we see ourselves as, having dreams, desires, and fantasies. Only if we see ourselves as a part of a larger group of people migrating to shape our destinies will we be able to build a more empathetic and equitable country. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Utsav Memory on Twitter and YVTravel42 on Instagram.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun talks to the co-founder of Sleepy Owl Coffee, Arman Sood, about how he markets coffee to a generation that was raised on drinking tea. On Postcards from Nowhere, Utsav narrates an intriguing story that connects Shimla, rare books, and the American Declaration of Independence. On Agla Station Adulthood, meet writer Priyam Saha. She tells Ritasha and Ayushi about the overly romanced concept of life in the city. On a show about crypto, Rohan figures out what Web 3.0 is with the co-founder of Vault, Darshan Patija. And on Smarter with Sid, Siddharth takes us through the journey of the BlackBerry and what its future is. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. And you can also check us out on YouTube. You can have a list of all of our shows at ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda and CoinSwitch Kuber.
Eventually, you'll see the end of your childhood.
Get accustomed to womanhood.
Enjoy the experience of sisterhood.
Might get to wifehood
or not. Choose motherhood
or not. You'll learn to define your personhood,
Earn a livelihood,
change the neighborhood.
and get rid of the falsehood that life post-academia is easy.
So join me, Ritasha,
And me, Ayushi,
on a journey from station starting point
to station, what now?
next station, Pudil station, and hopefully Agla station, adulthood.
Fresh episodes out every Thursday.